Just a point of information, our lector and cantor today is Marvin Fernandez. He's one of our postulants to our community, and our postulancy house is in Chicago. And during this January break, each of the province's postulants do a tour of their own province. And Marvin's begins here and ends here at the later part of January. But poor Marvin's been stalled here all week because the friaries where he was to visit, the friary in Silver Spring yesterday and today, and our friars at Catholic University have been hit by a certain disease. So they're quarantined. And even our other postulant, Connor, never made it here because of the storm on Monday and was tested positive for the disease on Tuesday. And he still wrote to us this morning telling us that his throat is sore, but he's still positive. So, we don't mind having Marvin. He's been a joy. But this disease has stalled many things: planes, trains, postulants. The voice that we hear from heaven up in the gospel today is very important. It's a total confirmation of Jesus as Christ. Up to this point of Jesus' baptism, Jesus was living. Before his baptism, Jesus was living an ordinary life, and although people may have noted that he was rather pious and he was more good than their other neighbors, no one in Nazareth seemed to have thought much about him. But it was only with his baptism and the beginning of his public ministry, which we see today, that Jesus begins the actions that raise controversy, that raise questions about his identity. This first reading from the prophet Isaiah, we hopefully recognize from the passage that begins, "Comfort, give comfort my people." It's part of the oratorio of the Messiah, "Comfort ye my people." This part of the book of the prophet Isaiah is called the Book of Consolation. It is placed here because the baptism of Jesus is the first step of the life of Jesus that shows the fulfillment of this prophecy found in Isaiah. The baptism could not have happened without the birth of Jesus, nor without his infancy or without his hidden years. But the baptism is important because it begins the revelation of Jesus as Son of God. And we used in that opening hymn about make manifest. Again, Jesus was made manifest in his birth, in his revelation to the Magi, and made manifest at his baptism, that he was the beloved Son of God. Jesus is always made manifest for us in the sacraments, in the Word, in the Gospel. The book of the prophet Isaiah is also fulfilled in such a way that we often do not recognize its fulfillment. Most of us want to be comfortable. We want a comfortable life and a life without problems. Certainly that's my life. We want God to take care of us. And God does promise to take care of us, to shepherd us, to watch over us. The difference is that God wants us to grow and grow to the very limits of our human potentiality. And we are generally comfortable without wanting to change. St. Irenaeus was the one who coined the phrase, "The glory of God is a man, is a woman, fully alive." Not just partially, but fully. That's how we can make God more fully alive in our hearts. How much can we love then? Can we love more? God will stretch us so that we can love more and more. And I don't mean spiritual yoga. We have to stretch our hearts, stretch our minds. The second reading from the letter to Titus dwells on this theme of growth, of stretching. The grace of God has appeared, saving all and training us to reject godless ways and worldly desires, and to live temperately, justly, and devoutly in this age. It is important for us to notice that this grace of God is training us. The text puts us as an ongoing action, not something that is ever completed. Our lives are a process. Our lives are about learning how to live with the wisdom of God, with the wisdom of God himself in us. That's our baptismal call, dying to self so that we can live in divine grace. Baptism is always about dying, about taking a new course, about this ongoing process of conversion. Christian conversion and deep change in our lives can only come about as we come to know and believe that we are beloved of God. This is why the voice at the baptism of the Lord is so important, and why we must also hear that voice of God speaking to us, that we too are beloved. You are beloved of God. There is a story that I need to share with you. It's about a machinist that worked years ago at the original Ford Motor Plant in Detroit, Michigan. Over a period of years, he somewhat borrowed some tools from the factory, or car parts from the factory, which he hadn't bothered to return. While the management never condoned this practice, nothing was ever done about it. In time, however, this forgetful borrower and machinist experienced a personal conversion, a Christian conversion, and was baptized. More importantly, the man took his baptism seriously and became a devout believer. The very morning after his baptism, the machinist arrived at work with his pickup truck loaded with all the parts and tools that he had taken from the Ford company over the years. He went to his foreman and explained that he had never really meant to take them, and he asked to be forgiven. The foreman was so impressed and so astonished by his truthfulness and his act of wanting to be forgiven that the foreman sent a cable, a telegram, that's email for the early 19th century. He sent a telegram to Henry Ford, who was overseeing some of the plants in Europe. And he explained to that magnate, what had happened, how this man had come bringing tools that he had stolen because he had been baptized and he wanted forgiveness. Well, Henry Ford immediately sent back a 2-line telegram. Dam up the Detroit River. Baptize the whole plant. That is exactly what baptism should do for us. Change us totally, completely. If it can happen to that machinist, why not us?